this morning I am starting to lay out all of my dahlia seedlings that I'm going to plant today. So I'm installing or planting the dahlia seedling patch. So I just wanted to show you all these little dahlia babies were started from seed, and every one of them is going to be a new variety. So see, they're already starting to form little tiny tubers. These are probably 8 to 10 weeks old. See that? Almost a little tuber going. So they have many different mothers. I collected seed off of a number of different varieties, and then I also have a bunch of bees choice. So even if you collect it off of a specific variety, the seed will not come back true to its parent. Every single little seedling is going to be a different variety. So this is what we call the private garden. It's basically an extension of my backyard, and this is where I love to grow dahlia seedlings. The rose nursery is over here. This is just like my own little special space. So I have 4 big rows. They're about 60 feet long and they're about 4 feet wide that I'm gonna plant seedlings in. So the guys prepped this for me yesterday. They put down a nice layer of compost, some fertilizer, and then rototilled it in, and then put down 3 lines of drip irrigation. We might go back and add a 4th, but the beds are all prepped. And I kind of use the drip irrigation as my string line. So the reason we use drip is because we have very light sandy soil. You can see how like dusty it is. And so we need a lot more water than most people, even though we live in a damp climate. So drip irrigation gets water right to the root system rather than using an overhead sprinkler. You definitely don't have to use it, but on a larger farm scale, it makes more sense. So we've got drip irrigation, and then I'm starting to set out my baby seedlings. So this is really interesting. So if you are growing dahlias from seed, say like Bee's Choice or something that you saved yourself, you can grow them like normal dahlias, 12 to 18 inches apart. You can put them in pots or in your flower bed or in long rows in your garden. Or you can grow them, like if you're doing it on a larger scale, you can actually cram these babies way closer than you think. Okay, look at this one. It's already starting to form a little tiny clump of tubers. So when I'm growing dahlias from seed for breeding, I place them 4 inches apart in the row. I've done this from the beginning. This is what the breeders taught me to do when I started going to like the Snohomish County local Dahlia Club. Because the thing is, most of these are not going to be things that I want to keep. Maybe 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 1,000 is going to be something that I really love. But for the most part, I'm going to end up just not keeping them. So all I need to see is that one single flower. So I just squeeze the plants in here, wait for the bloom, and then if I find something, I flag it and I save it. And then at the end of the season in the fall, I can dig up that clump of tubers from the variety that I love, and I can save those, and those tubers will come back true. So if you discover a dahlia in like your Bee's Choice seed mix or something that you saved yourself, you actually get to name that baby and it gets to be yours. Like you get to discover new varieties. So it's a really fun hobby. It's a really cool way of growing dahlias like on a different level. So every one of these little tiny seedlings is going to be a unique, different variety. And each one of these rows will fit a little over 1,000 seedlings if I plant 4 rows, 4 inches apart. So I've got about 4,000 seedlings I'm going to be working with this season. And I hope I'm guessing I'll probably find 100 in here that I want to keep and grow out next year. So over across the farm, I have my dahlia breeding patch where all the varieties I have selected and I'm working on. But this is like the nursery where I discover new varieties. And it's a super fun process. So you definitely don't have to do it like this, but this is how I do it on like kind of a bigger scale. But you can fit a lot of dahlia seedlings in a small space and you can squeeze them together. They'll grow just fine. They'll still make a clump of tubers. So just, yeah, and then later on this season, I'll show you how to save your own dahlia seed. If you have a copy of Discovering Dahlias, there's a whole section on how to grow dahlias from seed, how to start them, how to plant them, and then also how to save your own seed. But I'll be doing some demos if you ever want to go like big scale, because you couldn't really afford to do that with like little packets of seed. But if you wanted to grow 1,000 seedlings, I'll show you how to save seed off your dahlias so you can do it next year. So here's what they look like laid out before I start planting them. I finally finished. It took me a little longer than I expected. It took me all day, but I was doing it by myself. Thankfully, the guys had this all prepped for me, so at least I didn't have to do that piece of it. But all in, I planted 47 trays of dahlia seedlings, and it turned out to be about 3,400 plants. So I thought it was gonna be closer to 4,000, so I have a few left over. but you get the gist of it. So I've got a lot of different varieties that I collected seed off of last year, and I want to see what happens. Plus I have the Bee's Choice mix, plus I have other mixes, but like these are firefly babies, and I want to see, do the children come back with any kind of streaking? Or I've got Little Miss Sunshine babies here. So there's a lot of different experimentation happening. I'm going to share my findings and see if we can't learn more about dahlia breeding. But just so you can see, once again, now the plants are in the ground. So it's 4 rows in this bed. I probably could have gotten away with 5, and then I placed the plants about 4 inches apart. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it went, and I'm excited to see they'll be blooming. It won't be that long. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, 4 rows. So that's what you could fit in a space like this. Took me the entire day to plant it, but it's in. And then we'll put black fabric over the pathways to help with weeds. We'll run a piece of fabric along the front here so it's not so messy and weedy. And then after, I won't pinch these. So then the next step is to put in T-posts and corral them as they start growing. But there's a few more steps to go, but at least the baby plants are in the ground.